Welcome to Volume 11 RockTalk Podcast, brought to you by Volume 11 Music. Your hosts, Rich Hoffa, Rick Lawhorn, and Mark Dunn. RockTalk, Volume 11 Music.
Hey, welcome to Rock Talk at Volume 11 Music in Fredericksburg, Virginia. My name's Rich.
Rick Lawhorn.
Mark Dunn.
All right, so this is episode 41. 41, that's a 41, man. We've been doing this a while.
Yeah,
so
we're
that's
veterans
Musical
here.
cadence.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right, 4-1. Yeah,
4-1. Yeah.
4-1 progression.
So hey, if you guys are enjoying the videos, and please make sure to hit that like, subscribe button. Leave a comment. Always like reading your comments and stuff like that. And don't forget to visit our website, volume11-music.com.
Easy for you to say.
And we ship nationwide. I know Zaris, well, it's been a long day.
Yeah.
And don't forget, you save on the tax. You buy something from a small dealer, you save on tax, it save you a little bit of money. So this episode, we've talked about guitar players and singers, and we've talked about drummers and everything in between, but we haven't talked about producers and what is the function of a producer. Hopefully these guys know a lot more than I do about it, so because I'm very limited on what I know about producers. But hopefully we'll have a good conversation about it. Who wants to kick it off?
Well, I'll just to get this thing going here. So I'm going to start with the Beatles. I remember being a kid, and a lot of my friends, had Beatle albums, and the parents had Beatle albums. And you flip it over, and you say, okay, well, there's Paul McCartney and John Lennon, and okay, Ringo Starr, George Harrison, produced by George Martin. Who's George Martin? What does he do? I mean, does he get him coffee? He's got to do something. He's got to do something important. And so he was pretty much involved on most. I think there's one or two that he didn't produce, though.
The earliest ones, was he on the first two records?
Well, and then later on, though, like
stuff
on the back. Yeah, exactly. But he did a large chunk of the Beatles, material. So point being that he's obviously very important. So now let's take a deep dive, and Mark will throw it your way. What did George Martin do? I mean, what did he do to really?
The fifth Beatle.
Yeah.
But in general, let's define some basic parameters of a producer does, because it's an abstract. A producer can finance a project, and they're typically called an executive producer, but it can also be the producer. And a producer, I think, and I've produced a number. I'm not a vast number, but I've produced songs and albums and commercials and things like that. But a producer is the person that's outside the forest of the band. The band is in the forest and the trees, typically. And very rarely is a band able to be self-critical enough to produce the right product, and right is subjective, but because it's their art. It's like they've worked at this and they have it, and this is the way we do it, and blah, blah, blah. And, the producer is typically an outside entity that offers hopefully an objective look at each individual song, and then also the individual performance inside the song. And that may offer a difference in arrangement, a difference in something as simple as a drum fill,
right?
A sound. So the producer is kind of the overseer traditionally to get the body of work done in a manner that is a cohesive, presented statement of music and work at the time. George Martin is probably the pinnacle of examples for modern music. And when I say he's the fifth Beatle, I mean, when you listen to a song like Tomorrow Never Knows, you have to remember, too, that George Martin was a producer in an era where popular rock music was still brand new.
Right.
And technology was advancing at a rate where every year there was new things. So Tomorrow Never Knows has all those bird chirps.
The chirp.
So if you listen to it, it's the last song on Revolver, which is my favorite Beatles record. But they had bits of tapes lying all over the studio at Abbey Road, and with different rooms that had different tape decks in them, and he would just make loops with the tapes, and he held them off the tape head, and they were rolling around a pencil. And they were all feeding into another deck in another
Right.
room to get those sounds.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's also the one that came up with the idea for flipping the tape to
flip-
make a
yeah,
backwards
to get the
guitar
backwards.
solo.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
so that's George Martin. That album would not be what it is
Right.
for those two things alone.
Yes.
Right.
So God knows what he did for suggestions on
Right.
on song length, and he also scored symphonic tracks. He scored the symphonies for Eleanor Rigby and things like that. So
He earned his
that's
paycheck.
more than a producer. That's really someone that's in there and going, oh, this would be great if we did this. And of course, not that John, Paul, Ringo, and George wouldn't have thought of that, but they weren't thinking of those types of things.
They had that extra outside set of ears,
Right.
saying, "Let's do this."
So a
guys."
producer is kind of that person, and not to belabor it too much, but there's very, very few people in our time that have been able to self-produce. Primarily, the one I think of is Prince.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody ever said, "Hey, you might want to try it this
Yeah,
way."
right.
Yeah.
Nope, doesn't
You know,
work that way.
so
Yeah.
that's what I think a producer does, and we could go down the rabbit hole. I mean, in the '80s and the '70s, and the glory days of ridiculous budgets and whatnot, I think a producer might have been someone that just to make sure the album got done.
Done. Yeah, no, really. I agree with you.
Yeah, there's
Seriously,
a lot of
yeah.
it too. But even like Rick said, I mean, we were talking about this earlier, but that's when I started realizing what the producer was, of course, in the album days, because you're listening to the album, of course, you're reading everything
Looking
that's
at
in
the notes,
on the album cover and what's inside. And you always, my biggest, remembering, was Mutt Lange.
Oh yeah,
And,
Right,
it's like
AC/DC,
AC/DC and Mutt Lange here and Mutt Lange there, and you
Yeah.
always see those. But
here a mutt, there a mutt, everywhere a
Everywhere.
mutt.
yeah, right. But I think and they do. There's a lot of things like how to a singer's going to enunciate their words,
Right.
or drag something out, or speed the tempo up, or slow the tempo down. I mean, I'm sure there's songs that were written as a fast song. Let's make it a slow
Slower,
song.
change the tempo, yeah.
and different things like that. But I think they, like Mark said, they added outside influence. It's another set of ears that's
Yeah.
not as passionate about the song as the people that wrote it. But
Right.
they also, a lot of them will help with doing some of the writing as well.
And Mutt's
Yeah.
ear is
But,
ridiculous.
Yeah, I've
Oh,
heard that.
Yeah, his
yeah.
like I got a friend of mine that was on the Shania gig, and they were in rehearsals, and he was telling me that Mutt literally came up to him, guitar player, and there's 3 guitar players on stage, and goes, "I need you to play the D on the 3rd fret of the B string in that G chord. I'm not hearing it." Are you kidding
Huh.
me? That's
Right.
live.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean,
right.
my point about that is like, he's so in tune with how
that.
that was tracked.
Yes.
And he's like a tick with him. He's like, oh my God, I can't hear that D note.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Amongst all of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and Mutt Lange, AC/DC, Def Leppard.
Def Leppard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He made Joe Elliott what Joe Elliott, I mean, he didn't make Joe Elliott what he is, but he gave Joe Elliott the platform to become the singer that he is.
Yeah.
Joe Elliott didn't know he could do what he did.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. Like
Right.
with a producer, I think they give the band a signature, right?
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
and one of the things that you'll notice too, if you watch, listen to bands with their albums, you'll have album. Then they change producers. The band doesn't sound like it used to. It's got a
Correct.
whole different
Well, I was gonna go
vibe
there
to
with-
it.
On that, I'm going to throw in Queen.
Right.
Because in the 70s, everything was pretty much Roy Thomas Baker, like when they had the Night at the Opera, the operatic sound. And then they did this album called The Game, which is a lot more stripped down, no opera vocals. That was Mac, the German producer that produced that.
Great record.
And yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I
They
really
didn't lose
enjoyed
their
it.
identity on it.
Well, it still sounds like Queen.
Yeah.
But I think you all would agree with me, like the differences between, say, and some of this could be the songwriting too, like A Night at the Opera was something like Bohemian Rhapsody. Then over here you've got Another One Bites the Dust. It's still Queen, but what a different vibe. And I
Disco.
think, and I think, the members are there, the talent's there, but also the production, the producer. We're going to go a little different direction, guys. You know, we're not going to use the operatic vocals on Another One Bites the Dust.
You know, another great producer, and I have a fun story for this too, if that's okay, is Todd Rundgren.
Yeah.
And Todd Rundgren, songwriter, singer, wonderful musician, but he's also behind the board on a lot
Oh,
of
I've
great
heard he's
records.
like a genius.
Yeah,
pretty much
and
behind-
he has
yeah.
a sound.
Yes.
He has a sound, and
Yep.
some of his sound could be kind of compared to Phil Spector. But
Okay.
I was on a Rock Legends cruise a number of years ago, and I had seen Todd that August, I think, and on tour, and it was cool. And he gets in the elevator, and I'm like,
Wow.
Mr. Rundgren.
Yep.
He goes, I said, I saw you in Virginia Beach in August, and it was a great production, blah, blah, blah. And he was, he wasn't off-putting, but he was like, oh, thanks, So, and he got out, and I was like, dang it, he produced one of my all-time favorite records, which is not a very well-known record. So later, he happens to walk through the bar, and I was just walking through, and this other guy was talking to me, and he says, oh, Todd, come here, let me buy you a shot. So I'm standing there, Todd comes over, and I said, I didn't say that. I said, Mr. Rundgren. I said,
Must have sold something on
Yeah,
the
there you
road.
go. Woohoo!
take off.
All right.
I said, Mr. Rundgren, I forgot to tell you that you produced one of my favorite albums, and I really wanted to let you know that when I saw you in the elevator earlier. And he was quite dismissive. He goes, oh, yeah, which one? You're me. And I'm pretending to be him. He's not even looking at me. And I said, Love Junk by The Pursuit of Happiness. And he went, really?
And that caught him. Like, whoa.
Yeah, because remember that song,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
an adult
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
Well, that's the worst song on the record. And it was the only hit. That album is amazing. And we took this deep dive on, how he looked at it, how he worked it, how he his vocal chain for the backup vocals. And it was just a lot of fun. And he goes, did you hear the second album? I said, yeah, I heard it once or twice. And he laughed. And he goes, what'd you think of it? I said, you didn't produce it, so what did you think of it? I think they didn't even go plastic in sales. It was
Right.
But, so Todd Rundgren had everything to do
With that,
first album, and then that's how important it was. And so he has a sound.
Right.
Templeman has a sound.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
And Templeman, Doobie Brothers, Nicolette Larson, Van Morrison, and then Van
Halen, of course. And Montrose, too.
Montrose, exactly. That's why, because he wanted to get Sammy.
Sammy, So, no doubt.
Some of these guys, I mean, they don't get the credit that they
They
deserve.
don't. They really don't.
I mean, you think of some of them. I mean, look at the hit albums they put out. I mean, gosh.
They're part of the equation.
Mutt Lang gets points.
Yeah, he gets points.
I think he got 20 points on Everything I Do It For You on the single.
Wow.
Yeah, the points on there.
So he's not hurting. He's not having to do the Happy Meal at McDonald's, right? the extra value meals there for Mutt,
And think of the Shania album.
The Shania, right?
I don't even know, but I know that that one song, which was for the Robin Hood movie, right?
I think so.
It was. I don't think it was on an album.
It was just
I think like 20 points.
Wow.
It's a huge song.
Yeah,
But,
definitely.
so I mean, so you look at. I mean, that's not like we're making a list of the greatest producers, but the importance.
The
of
importance
them.
of them. They're important. They really are.
Yeah, I mean, that's the person behind the board. And another thing too. Any engineer, in my opinion, engineer that's working the board, that's getting the sounds that are in the real world to a presentable piece of music, they're a de facto producer.
Yeah,
right.
I've thought that as well.
100%.
Totally with you on that.
Where the microphone sits.
Yeah, the microphone placement.
Yeah.
And the little nuances.
Yeah, I mean, how a singer is hearing themselves in the headphones to get a performance style. Rodney Mills was a guy that's known for mastering, and was working on a record down in Atlanta, and he was being conversational. He goes, when Ronnie Van Zant says "Turn It Up" on the beginning of "Sweet Home Alabama"?
Yeah, turn it up.
I said, "Yeah, I do." He goes, "Yeah, that's him telling me to turn up his headphones."
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
That's
I
funny.
had no idea.
I really never knew that.
Yeah,
I just thought it'd be cool. Come on, guys, turn it up.
Yeah, that's what I thought he was saying, but they decided to leave it in. But he's asking Rodney Mills to turn it up. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah,
That's true.
So,
I never knew that, honestly.
Yeah, and Rodney Mills is a guy that mastered Limp Bizkit,
Right.
STP, all the '90s heavy
90s,
stuff.
yeah,
But he's the
alternative rock.
one. He's the one. He didn't produce that record, but he was engineering.
Yeah.
So
And they deserve part of they're part of the equation too. And like we were saying earlier before we did the broadcast here, another one as a kid, I got my Led Zeppelin albums out. Hey, produced by Jimmy Page. Wait a minute, he's in the band.
yeah, we got to talk about this.
That's different because the Beatle albums, it didn't say produced by John Lennon or produced by Paul McCartney, but the Zeppelin album says produced by Jimmy Page. What's up, Mark Dunn?
Well, I mean, I think you and I would both agree, and Rich too. First of all, Jimmy undertook it as his own project. He could have actually just called it the Jimmy Page.
Yeah, the Jimmy Page band.
But it was the New Yardbirds under contract.
That's right, it was.
He could use that name, but I think he had the money because him and he was doing so much session work.
Yeah.
But arguably, at that point in time, any record label and any producer for them to take those songs and that performance that they had with Robert Plant and just the way it sounded didn't sound like anything else before. We can agree on that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's an objective. No one would have allowed it to be what it was going to be. So Jimmy
Yeah.
Page was like, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
doing it. This is mine.
I'm going to own the tapes.
Yeah.
And anybody that's seen Becoming Led Zeppelin, we were
Yeah,
talking
we
about that very
watched
first
it
performance.
last week.
That very first performance where those people are in that studio, that's like a television studio,
Yeah.
and they're just sitting there looking at them going, what is this?
Yeah, what
Yeah,
are we?
right,
They
yeah.
were not expect. Nobody would have allowed that.
This
my
is not
point.
Bing Crosby.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right. So Jimmy Page
Yeah,
had to
this is-
set a new bar
right.
in what he did, because I mean that was an audible affront to
Yeah.
the sensibilities of people that were used to hearing the Yardbirds.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean that Hendrix hadn't really even hit yet.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to the mega status that we know he is now.
No,
but that
they were
is still-
kind of adjacent. But
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
used to love me.
Yeah,
and
kinda.
you know that even when Beatles started experimenting, they were still on the radio.
Right,
They
right.
weren't screaming.
Yeah, exactly.
They weren't Bonham. They weren't communication breakdown.
Yeah.
I mean that's that. So that's Jimmy Page taking the reins and really, and then Eddie Kramer was an engineer on
Yep.
some of the Zeppelin stuff.
I
Yeah.
remember
And
hearing
Headley
that,
Grange and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a lot to do with the levee breaks.
the levee, right,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I don't know if he's a producer on that, but the intro to When the Levee Breaks is because of Eddie Kramer. You know, that's another example of an engineer. So,
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think about Jimmy Page doing that? I mean, that's.
Oh, I think it's
Yeah,
great. I mean,
incredible.
it's obviously worked out pretty good.
yeah,
I mean, I would say that's why.
But no, that's a great analysis, you know. But it's just very different from, like I said, the Beatles example that we did, where you've got George there as that outside set of ears. So based on what we're saying now with Zeppelin, there really is no on that outside set of
No,
ears.
Yeah.
You know,
it's them.
It's internal. It's within the band. So into that whole Beatles versus Zeppelin thing, you know, when people kind
Yeah,
of
I
debate.
never looked. You know,
yeah.
I think I know what you're saying there, but I never really saw them. The Zeppelin was already they made their own category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was
right.
always the Beatles versus the Stones.
Stones. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, no doubt.
But I'll tell you what, you know who's one of the most non-famous producers, but probably the most important producer of our adult years?
Our
Butch
years.
Vig.
Butch Vig. Okay, yes.
Produced Nevermind.
Never mind. Yeah.
I
definitely.
mean, you know, and it's that whether you like
No,
that or
no,
not.
it took it down a whole new avenue. Yeah, no, I'm with you 100% on that.
And the drum sound on that is ridiculous. And to the part of the equipment, I think Dave Grohl bought that board.
Yeah, I did hear that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But Butch Vig did that album, and on a shoestring budget, relatively
Right.
speaking.
Yeah.
And you know the people have tried to emulate that sound ever
Oh
since
boy,
then.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had
No
one
doubt
of Dave's
about that.
guitars in here the other day.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that too.
Yeah.
That's cool.
One of his
It's a cool
high school
story.
buddies had one of his guitars. He brought it in here. I can't remember why he brought it in here, but I don't know if it was to do work or just put some strings on it or what. But he goes, "Yeah, that's you guys
Dave
rec-
Grohl's
you guys
guitar."
recognize that guitar?" I go, "Yeah, it kind of looks familiar." He goes, "Oh, it's Dave Grohl's." And it, you know, you had all the writing on the case and all that stuff.
That's
But
pretty
he
cool.
buddies,
Yeah.
he sent it to him.
He lived in
so-
Springfield, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Virginia,
Yeah.
Virginia guys originally.
Yeah.
Before he,
How the heck did he wind up in Seattle?
Yeah.
Good for him that he did.
yeah, because
Well,
at the time he would have known. Like,
He
oh,
used to
Yeah,
play
yeah.
down in Mexicano, down in Nag's Head.
Well, I guess
Yeah.
it's you know, just like when everybody was moving to LA.
LA,
Seattle was the next
yeah,
new thing.
that's
going
to be the next thing at the
so-
time for the early '90s, and of
Yeah.
course it worked.
Seattle was kind of already hip, though. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
Hendrix and Hart and
Right.
but I mean, there was a burgeoning scene there, but we had no idea that it was going to be the,
what it became there in the '90s. You know,
like
with-
I mean, like if you think about Metallica going to San Francisco because LA was so much hairspray,
Yeah.
and then further than that, you go to like the not anti-Metallica or thrash scene, but Seattle just was like, what?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
right, right.
You
You
know?
know, they threw a dart at the dartboard.
Right.
All right, Seattle, that's where we're going.
But I mean,
we haven't talked about the great producers on Saturday Night Live that did the skit.
Oh, that's right.
You
That's
know,
true.
I mean,
Yeah.
Have you seen those?
Yep. I know what you're talking about.
I got a feeling.
Yeah,
More
God,
cowbell.
I need more cowbell.
Cowbell.
Yeah, that was great. That was great.
That's a classic, man.
Still play that at the hockey
Oh,
games.
that's
you
just
know, we need more
you know,
cowbell.
timeless, man. That one.
Well, not topic specific.
I like the Bee Gees one.
the Bee Gees.
Oh, that's
one, yeah,
hilarious.
that's
Oh
good.
my
Yeah, that's
gosh.
funny too.
What song were they trying to do? I can't remember. Was it
Staying Alive, or Tragedy, or
I don't
one
know.
with the real high
of those,
harmonies,
they're
you know,
doing
crazy
the
high
low
harmonies.
voices, and he goes
Higher.
We gotta go higher. We gotta go higher.
But you know why those are funny is because there's a little bit of truth in them.
Yeah.
And the cowbell thing, people might not realize it, but producers are kind of like
that. Yeah,
Oh,
I got a
yeah,
feeling.
I need more. I got a feeling.
Got a feeling, baby.
Yeah. That's right. And you can get those at Volume 11 Music. We have a lot of cowbell.
We do.
You know why? Because I like cowbell.
Great endorsement.
That's right.
And there's plenty of cows I see right when I'm down
Yeah,
the way.
that's
Right,
right.
right.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
those cows.
Fredericksburg.
Those cows.
They're
need
going
some
away,
bells.
but with
Yeah,
all the
right.
apartment buildings and everything being built around here. But
Any other producers that kind of stand out that people might not think about because
Well, Bob Rock, in the sense that,
sure.
because when
Okay,
you look
Bob
at,
Rock,
for example,
yeah.
I'm sure you'll agree with me.
Dr. Feelgood.
Dr. Feelgood. You look where Motley
that
Crue
thing
was at,
That was produced incredible.
and then you get Bob Rock into the picture there, right?
Yeah.
And of course then Metallica with the
Yeah.
Black Album, a couple years later.
Yeah.
So he definitely stamped his
Oh
signature.
yeah,
on
well that was a
those,
great. I mean, Bob Rock. Those are great sounding albums.
Big,
really
big,
big, heavy.
thick guitars.
I love what he did with the drums on
Drums.
Dr.
Dr.
Feelgood.
Feelgood is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, the interesting thing too, though, as a producer, we're talking about these big, epic sounding albums, but there are, other bands that are of demure sound compared to what we're talking about, and a producer has to have an ear for that.
Oh yeah.
Well said.
I got let's take it down a notch. I mean, like, Tainted Love is a hit.
Right. Yeah.
It's not Motley Crue,
Right,
And it
right.
sounds that way, and you can hear it in your head now that I've said it, and that's because of a producer.
Of a producer.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
And then so with Metallica, they had the Bob Rock, and then they went with Rick Rubin later on,
Yeah.
when they did Death Magnetic. So
Beastie
you've got
Boys.
Beastie
Rick
Boys,
Rubin.
Slayer,
Yeah.
with the metal.
And Rick Rubin is you know what? He's a wonderful example, maybe the best one, because he's not a musician.
Right.
And
Right.
I'd encourage you to listen to the Rick Rubin Joe Rogan podcast, because he
Right.
just talks about how he just loved going to see these hip hop.
Yeah, he's just
Yeah.
kind of into the scene, or what catches him.
Yeah,
and
and giving objective input. So, and also, who's the guy that was Arista Records? He's still, I can't think of his
Arista.
name.
Okay.
He signed Celine Dion, Whitney Houston, and there was a special on him too. He wasn't a musician, and he wound up being able to hear and find potential talent.
Yeah.
And bring it out.
Bring it out, yeah.
So it's an interesting dynamic to be able to be. I mean, there was a time in the 90s and the 2000s, especially when we got into the digital age with Pro Tools, that everybody became a producer.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm a producer.
I
yeah,
produce. I
no,
produce.
yeah.
I produce here. My brother produces.
Yeah, you work in the produce department. at Farm Fresh.
I know it. Reminds me, I just watched Spies Like Us. Doctor.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that wraps it up for this episode of Rock Talk.
41.
Yeah, 41.
episode.
Where are you guys playing out this weekend?
This weekend is the Caroline County Fair, Friday, June 20th, with Cactus Jack down in Carolina, Virginia. Really nice fairgrounds down there. So we play from 7 to 10. The fair opens at 5. It's free admission, free parking, very family friendly. So come on out to the Caroline County Fair, Friday, June 20th, Cactus Jack.
That's it.
That's it. Just one, yeah.
Friday, I'm at Six Batters and the Goat.
6 bears.
All right.
and a
Acoustic.
acoustic
I
unplugged.
think I start at 7.
Okay.
And then Saturday, I'm in Virginia Beach with the band at Old Beach Tavern.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Good deal. Well, I'm going to be doing what I always do, and that's working.
The tradition.
The tradition, I'm going to
Working
be
man.
still working on. I'll be doing a lot of digital marketing over
Yeah.
the weekend, things like that. Still working on the website. You guys check out the website. I mean, we've got almost all the inventory on there. It's real time. Gets updated every evening, and show you everything. I mean, we worked hard on it. It's been a heck of a
He worked hard on
journey.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nuts. But we're going to probably, I think what I'm going to be doing, I've been asked about is like, what do you do all day, Rich? So there's probably going to be a little video series on
Okay.
what it's like to run a music store. And I do everything by myself. So the amount of hats that I wear
Yeah,
in here
the captain of the ship.
is pretty incredible. So maybe you guys will look forward to that.
And we've got some
See
cool
it.
announcements coming up soon, too.
Yeah,
We're going to have a cool thing. That's That's what you call
Yeah.
a teaser.
It's a teaser.
Yeah,
It's a bit of a
baby.
teaser. We got cool things
We got things
on
going
the horizon
on.
Yeah.
Stuff going on.
That's the way we roll.
Stuff happening.
for the
So,
community.
Yeah.
outside the store.
Good stuff.
That's
Good
right.
stuff.
So don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe. Please subscribe. We need more subscribers. We're still trying to get to 1,500. We know I got a lot of people watching the show, so let's hit that subscribe button. Help us out.
I forgot to say hello to our viewer in Qatar.
Guitar.
Okay.
All right.
He wants to buy a new guitar.
He needs a new guitar.
Guitar?
Can you ship
Does he
that?
want an electric guitar?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Great.
Yes.
All right. Peace.
This has been an episode of Volume 11 Rock Talk Podcast, brought to you by Volume 11 Music.